shake your dreams from your hair. I'm already there, right beside you. So please, don't hide, just say I'll be there if it breaks, right beside you. Suddenly I know now how it feels. I no longer have to beg or steal. I can stand out on this higher ground, where love is just a sound, where love is...
Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. I'm Crystal from Gecko Diva, and welcome to Coffee and Cresties. I got my tea this morning. Still getting over that cold. It's been a nasty cold. I've had it now probably, 3 weeks? I think it's going on 3 weeks. But yeah, so hopefully I won't have any coughing fits today. We'll just keep it a little bit easy on my voice. But it's been a bit of a struggle. It's been a crazy week. Anyone watch that fight on, was it Saturday? No, it was Friday night on Netflix. I know a bunch of people are having issues watching it because of Netflix crashing and it buffering. It was fairly okay on our side. It was crashing a little bit more at the beginning for us, but, got to watch the fight. Have to say I was a little disappointed. I mean, you see all the reviews online that it's kind of, it was all for show. Definitely when you saw Jake Paul coming out in his car, instead of walking out to the ring, you knew right then and there it was going to be all for show because it was this huge production, right? But the fight before that, the ladies, that was a pretty good fight. I have to say it was a good one to watch. And it was kind of neat to be able to just, tune into Netflix to see it. I do hope that they have a little bit more of these type of events, just because it's kind of nice to get everyone together, to get the fam together, and have a pretty, easy place to go find it. I know when we're watching MMA or any of the other events that go on, sometimes you have to get a membership somewhere else, or you're trying to log in somewhere else to try to find it, and it can get all confusing when you have so many different streaming apps and so on, right? So I'm sure they've heard a lot about the system not working very well. Yes, Cresty Millions, they did rob her. And I 100% agree. She should have won that fight because she killed it. Like, she held her own for the whole time. And definitely, in my opinion, fought better. But, it's I was talking to my husband about that, and it's tough to make that decision and make that call and to take away a title from somebody, right? So, she comes out there with all her belts, and then yeah, it's definitely you can't take that decision lightly. Speaking of belts, very excited. Oh, that's not the right one. 15 minutes of lame. So some of you probably seen a couple of my posts over the last 2 days, really pushing out the vote. So I'm part of 15 minutes of lame this year. It's a contest that was started with what used to be Snakes and the Fat Man. It's now under the umbrella of Fat Man Nation. And it's also sponsored by Canova. It's very much a ball python heavy contest. And it's basically they highlight new breeders in the industry. It's to vote for your favorite new breeder for 2024. So this is be the 5th year that you're doing it. My husband participated in it last year. I'm the only gecko lady in the club. So Everybody else is ball pythons. I know a lot of the ball python breeders do also focus on other things like hognoses, and I know some do leopards, some do crested, but I'm the only one who's predominantly just doing crested geckos. We do ball pythons, but it's my husband's thing, so he's the VIP morphs. So I'm in it with Gecko Diva. And basically, this portion is the popularity vote. So it's the public vote. So the voting gets split into 4. The popularity vote is 25% of the overall voting. And then the other 75% is split between 3 judges. So this year, the 3 judges are Leviathan Snakes. So Courtney and Steven share a vote. Then you have Shane over at Small Town Exotics, and Antoine at High Desert Pythons. And then you have Paul at Large Marge Morse, who is the tie-breaking vote if it should come to a tie. So you have the 2 sides where I have to kind of really campaign to try to get everyone to want to vote for me for the popularity vote, and also showcasing the business side. So the geckos, the animals I'm working with, the marketing aspect, expos, all that stuff, and to really showcase to the judges why I should win for the favorite new breeder for this year. So if you do have a chance, you can vote once a day, every day up until the 24th of December. So you just have to go to thefatmannation.com, and you'll get that top part where if you scroll down, it gives you an option that says vote now. When you click on vote now, it takes you to the voting page, and then you just have to scroll down, and then you'll see me under Crystal Crabtree, Gecko Diva, and then you just click on that. There's a couple breeders right now that are in the lead. When we started this, it was cool because I was like right up at the front, but then of course, as campaigning happens and people are pulling their support, other people have kind of jumped forward. So I'm asking all of you gecko people, all the wonderful gecko breeders, to pull behind the gecko person. So if we can all come together as a community and really push that, that'd be awesome. And yes, my husband does say you can vote from multiple devices, so it's not just your household. Like if you have a phone, a tablet, a laptop, like right there, that's 3 votes. You just can only do it once a day. And then why is this so exciting, tie in with the belt? Because there is a belt, a legit wrestling belt that they've made, where your name gets engraved on it. So here we have Steven from Leviathan Snakes at the top of the belt, and then Shane Kelly over at Small Town Exotics was a winner as well, and he has the belt. Shane likes to send us the pictures and every day to remind us how awesome the belt is. Of course, there's a lot of other things too that you get as perks for winning, but I think the belt is pretty cool. And if Antoine sees this, I did not intentionally forget you. You just don't send me a picture of you in the belt all the time. So these are the ones that I was able to get easy access to on short notice. Let's see who we got in the chat this morning. We pop this up. Aquatic Moose, good morning. Have a little coffee and a gecko there. Thanks for joining in. We got Aaron Wheeler in the house this morning. Good morning. Still warm here in Florida. It's always warm in Florida. Even when you say it's cold in Florida, how cold does it really get at the end of the day? I can tell you it's really cold, okay, in Smith Falls. In some parts of Canada, they've already gotten snow, so that's not been very pleasant. Cresty Millions, good morning. You got Celtic Reptiles in the house. Good morning. Cassandra D, good morning. Thanks for joining. And we got I can never say, I'm sorry, first for unique. I'm going to have to practice saying it because I messed it up last week too, and I really apologize. Good morning. And then my husband's in the house with VIP Morphs, first gecko lady. Yeah, I'm the only gecko one in the house. And then we have Brian in the house. He's backstage waiting to hop on. Good morning. It's going to be a good chat today, guys. It's going to be a really fun chat. And then Leviathan's in the house. We have a judge in the house. Now the pressure's on. I feel like I'm being judged. Steven. I don't know if this is Steven or Courtney. It says, hey, friends. So I'm guessing it's Steven. Hi, Steven. And a lot of people in the house this morning. Look at this. Brian brought the heat. Michael De Silva in the house. Good morning. And we got the Gecko Room. Good morning. Mark, you're going to pop in my tea time. Exciting news for sure. And is anyone else's audio cutting out? I don't know. Can we get some answers? Because I would like to know that, because it's my end seems okay. Nope. And negative. Okay, so that's good. Okay. Sorry, Michael, if it's cutting out on your end. I think what we'll do is we'll pop into our tea time. All right. So as most of you know who have tuned in before, our tea time is to share some positivity that has happened in the community over the past week. And anyone who's new, that's why I'm reiterating this. So the first thing I wanted to bring up was that the unbiased Gecko Talk. So anyone who follows this live, it used to be on Instagram. And this is with the Gecko Room and Gecko Nerd. And they have this every Saturday on Instagram. And it has now moved over to YouTube. So Saturday, they had their very first official YouTube episode live, which is pretty exciting. Definitely a change in pace, right? Like to when there's an adjustment period when you go from Instagram live to over to YouTube. But I've been watching it. I haven't had a chance to finish the episode, but so far it's been pretty awesome. And I just applaud you guys because you did a great job. If anyone wants to go and subscribe, it's a new channel, so it would be under Unbiased Gecko Talk, and you can go and find it on YouTube. But it'll be and it's a new channel now, a new place to go and subscribe and set a notification, right? And check out their content, because it's definitely being the Unbiased Gecko Talk. They talk about different hot topics, right, within the community. And you have an opportunity to engage live and be able to share your comments and your feedback, and be able to have a positive, healthy discussion of back and forth on topics, right? Because it's not always necessarily going to be something that everyone agrees on. And that's the place, that's the whole point, right? The place to be for you to be able to have an open discussion and dialogue on these hot topics. So definitely go and check it out. The other thing I wanted to share was those of you who are working in the Pixel project, I'm sure have already seen this. Pangea came out with their Pixel story on Monday. And it's pretty exciting to see some of the findings that they have. Of course, there's a lot more research to be done in Pixel. A lot of what they were saying definitely falls in line with what I've been seeing. Most of you know that Pixel is one of my main projects. I do have several projects on the go. But in my collection itself, I've noticed that it's been presenting as a recessive gene. So it is really interesting and kind of validating to see them come out with that similar I guess the similar findings, right, through their experience working with it. So definitely go check it out if you haven't had a chance to read it. It's just on the Pangea website, and it's not too long of a read, but they also have a whole bunch of pictures and stuff to back up what they've produced in it. And that being said, with the 15 Minutes of Lame contest, I plan on showcasing some of the stuff that I'm working with, some of the projects I'm working with on through Gecko Diva, and Pixel being one of them. So you will see a video from me as well being posted. I'm most likely going to put it as a YouTube video to really show my findings on my side, what I've been able to produce out of it, and what the holdbacks that I've held back as possible hets and so on. So it'll be kind of neat as more breeders start sharing, you know, what they're working with, and the results. And hopefully having everyone share that information and put it out there will allow us to kind of be able to progress a lot further with Pixel than previously, when everyone was kind of working on their own little secret projects. So it'll be really nice to kind of see that become a lot more widely known, I guess, with everyone. So yeah, so that's all I have right now. I do have just to fall back on the 15 minutes of lame. I do have some collab videos coming out that are going to come out, and endorsement videos. If anyone wants to talk to me about doing some fun reels and collabing on things, by all means, shoot me a DM on Instagram, and I'd be happy to talk about it. And I think it'd be great to kind of really get to tie in with everybody within the community, and to have fun with it, because that's the whole point, right? Is to have fun. Let's go here. And I think y'all are just, I've talked enough about me, and I think we'll jump right in and bring out our guest. Did the music get you moving around back there too? I always kind of go along with the jazz, but might not be your type of music.
I like all kinds of music.
So we have Brian in the house from Altitude Exotics. How are you doing today?
I am good today. How are you?
Doing great. Feeling much better, that's for sure, because I've been kind of not feeling the best for quite some time now, so it's kind of nice to finally get over that. Where are you, Brian, for people who don't know? Are you in some warm state, or is it getting cold where you are?
No, I'm in Colorado, so it's pretty cold by now. We just had a big snowstorm last weekend, so I spent all last weekend with a very sore back after building a giant snow fort for my kids. This weekend, well, I said I was going to relax, and then I went to a concert last night that went way too late.
Oh no. Did you have fun? That's the bottom line, right?
I did. It was like an EDM rhythm show that it is not usually my scene, but my cousin is super into it, and we always drag each other to the other one's shows, and it's always fun. It's a good time. Live music of any kind is fun, so it was well worth it.
Yeah, because your music, I guess, is more the heavier music, right?
Yeah, mostly. I mean, like I said, I've listened to anything that just sounds good to me, but mostly heavy metal. But I do like, if of all the EDM shows my cousin takes me to, like really heavy dubstep or rhythm is the best. It's kind of like metal adjacent, I guess, that at least has the energy behind it, that it's a good time. It was a fun show.
Has a little bit of influences here and there. I find myself, because I can't call myself a musician anymore, because I have no time to play any instruments. Like, let's be real. Like I sold all my instruments and bought geckos, right? So, but like once upon a time, I mean, I did more, heavier rock, and was a girl fronted rock band, right? Like very much Courtney Love, Hole inspired, Evanescence, like kind of influences from different things. But I do feel, as much as I'll gravitate towards certain music, that I definitely have an open mind to it as a whole. And so do a lot of my friends who are musicians, where you'll appreciate, even if it's not necessarily your style, you'll be like, oh yeah, it's fine. You can play, you can play the crooners, or you can play EDM, or, there's some that maybe you'll like more than others, but you tend to like a wider range of different stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to put something on that I'm going to actively be like, ugh, can you turn this off, please? Like, you got to try to find that one with me.
My guilty pleasure is the 50s crooners songs. So when Christmas rolls around, it's a really fun time of year because I'm playing all like the Frank Sinatra, like all the older, but it's the older Christmas music. It's lovely. And
My, it's a bit different, but my kids get really annoyed because my favorite like Saturday morning dance around the kitchen and make pancakes music is like retro inspired 1920s electro swing EDM music. And they just think it's the dorkiest stuff. They're like, Dad, this is like old people music. I'm like, yeah, but it's like revamped new old people music, and it's fun, and we're making pancakes, and someday they're gonna realize how
well,
cool I am.
back when I had satellite TV, because now it's all just apps and stuff, but you'd be able to go to they had a whole list of music channels, and I would just pop on swinging standards in the morning, and you'd be
It's a
making
dangerous
breakfast or
thing
cleaning the
to
house to
try. You don't
swing
know what
music.
might pop up.
Now you have to go to try to find it on Spotify, right? There's an app for
Right?
everything now. Yeah, my husband pops in and says Christmas with Bing Crosby. So I mean, you've been in the hobby for quite some time. A lot of people, like basically everyone knows who you are, Brian. And if anyone's caught any podcasts in the past, they have a pretty good idea of your story and how you started. But for new people in the hobby who might not have seen any of that, maybe just share the Cole's notes so we don't go too in depth of it, but like how you got into it and how long has it been and how you came up with the name and stuff.
Yeah, so I got in 2008, 2009-ish. It was kind of a mix between I've always been a reptile lover, and I've always, like, since I was a little kid, I've known that I am not going to work for someone else. I went through a number of failed ways to try and work for myself, like musician. I tried to be a rock star for a while. I tried all kinds of crazy business ideas that didn't work. And then I kind of stumbled into geckos as I was revamping my life working as a professional carpet cleaner for some guy's company, and fell into geckos, and immediately like it was like, this was amazing. It's all these cool creatures. They feel neat. You can breed them in a bunch of different colors and patterns, and like very, very quickly I was sucked completely into this world, and my apartment was overrun by geckos. I was pissing off every girl that I knew because I had more time for geckos than them. And here I am, what is it, 15, 16 years later, or whatever the math works out to be at this point, basically doing the same thing.
Yeah, and the main one that you had really like started with was the Reds, right? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I made the biggest mistake that I always get the question, what would you tell a new breeder? Like, what advice do you have for a new breeder? And it's usually plan your projects before you buy your geckos, or you'll do what I did, where I wasted all my money when I was younger buying every gecko I thought was cool, and then had 200 geckos and no projects. And then when I sat down and was like, okay, I have to focus, and I actually like wrote out on a spreadsheet what I wanted to do and what geckos I had and what I could afford to buy to fill out projects. And I really started to build a red pinstripe project at that time. That was 2010, 2011. Red pinstripes were almost unheard of. Like, there was a few out there, but not many. So that became my main focus, was Dalmatians and red pinstripes. And that was kind of most people kind of forget about it now because the turnover is so fast in the hobby, but that was really where I built my name to begin with. I was the guy with the red geckos. I had the really nice red geckos because that was my biggest focus. And nowadays, nobody even really associates me with red pinstripes or red Harleys or any of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, they'll still associate you to the dolls and stuff, right? Because it's Chunky Monkey is the popular, the star of the show.
Monkey's definitely one of my very favorites.
Yeah, and now it's Xanthic. Like that when you hear Xanthic, they know Brian.
Yeah, I got this. So it was just a very fortuitous mix of right place, right time, good luck, and I suppose some hard work that all worked out very well, that I was able to get into that Xanthic project kind of right on the ground floor. And now that's what most people, it was one of the comments in the chat was Axanthic altitude. That's the main thing people know me for now is the Axanthic line.
Yeah. And like, I would imagine the the way doing things now is so different, right? With all the social media and to promote your business. Like you're saying, like back then, like you became known for the Reds and the Dows, but like even to go to you and say, hey, do you have any advice on a new breeder to come in and what to focus on? Like, what would you say now would be something that a new breeder coming in should really focus on when they're trying to establish a business or try to, I guess, make a name for themselves, right? Like to really kind of get themselves out there. Would it be mainly like focusing on specific projects, like focusing on the social media aspect? Like how important do you think that, I guess, social media side is for that?
Social media is huge, obviously. That's the main way humans connect, probably to our detriment, but it's unavoidable, especially in an industry like this. My main advice is usually, kind of two-sided. One is temper your expectations. There's a lot of people, I know we had talked about, we're going to touch on the market in general. This ties into that we can circle back around to. But COVID really exacerbated things where there was an illusion that was much easier to become a full-time gecko breeder than it actually is. So I'd say that's one side is temper your expectations and know what's realistic. And then the other side I always tell people is don't chase what you think your business needs to be breeding.
Yeah.
Breed what you like, breed what you have passion for. If you really, really have a passion for the pixel gene, breed the pixel gene and do your best with that versus chasing, say, oh, but X, Y, and Z sells for the most money, so I need to go chase that. But if you don't really love it, that shows. It shows in your breeding results. It shows in your presentation. It shows in your online persona. It shows in your enthusiasm of how you talk about the geckos. And all of those things is what makes people take notice of the quality of your animals and your business and you as a breeder. It's like it's so much easier if you're just doing what you love because you don't have to fake all the other stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that I know I see it a lot, like coming from the ball python side where it is really more prevalent there with the gene chasing, right? Because you have so many more options with ball pythons where you're trying to make the world's first, right? With combos and certain genes and so on. And you have that established where you have the ability to do that. Where with geckos it's different. I mean, we don't have shed testing. A lot of the genes are very new that people are working with, and you still don't have a full understanding of how necessarily they're interacting with each other. So I have seen it where with with the Xanthics or with the Sable, for instance, that's come out, and where people kind of, it's easy to get into that frame of mind where you're chasing something, but it's and not to fall into that trap where you're trying to chase the next best thing, because at the end of the day, the people who have it are always going to be ahead of you with that, unless you're planning on doing specific strategic projects, I guess, that are different or you're going a different direction. So like to me, I see, like, if you're trying to get into something new, why are you getting into that new gene, and what are you planning, like what's the end goal with it? Because if the end goal is just to try to make a lot of money, well then you see that time and time again. Well, you're always going to kind of be behind because someone's always going to make more of them. Or like, so what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you fall along the same type of feelings on that? Or
I think a good analogy I've used before is reptile breeding is a pyramid scheme. So if let's just pretend that I could have an albino Crestie. I've got one. Well, I'm the only breeder that has them, and then I'm going to sell one to you and to my friend and to one other person for $100,000 each. But now 4 of us have them, and then we all sell them to 12 people, and those sell them, and those sell them. And as the pyramid gets bigger, the price goes down. You have to approach it in a way that it takes that pyramid scheme business plan out of what you do. And a good way to do that is don't chase the money, because you can't climb to the top of that pyramid. It's like once it's there, you can go back to it. So if you just chase what you love, and instead of being like, well, Axanthics have a big pyramid with a lot of money in it, I really like, pick what you're passionate about. If you really like Dalmatians, then really push for Axanthic Dalmatians and focus on that and build your own pyramid off of, I'm going to have the best Axanthic Dalmatians because I really love spotted geckos, and that's where my energy and my passion is. Or pixels, or just red harlequins, or, chase things that you're going to have passion for. It comes back around to the same thing. It just makes life so much easier when you're doing the work that you love versus trying to force the work that you think is going to be most successful.
Yeah. I just want to give a couple shout outs. We have Miami Art Geckos in the house. Good morning, Scott. And one of my nemesis here, another contestant of 15 Minutes of Lame. It's Charlie with Regan Renee Royal Reptiles. Good morning, gecko people. Don't come here and try to steal my gecko people, Charlie. Yeah, and on the subject of marketing, my husband says, I love his lives from shows. He's so positive, and the mystery boxes are a ton of fun. So yeah, you and I chatted about this. I think when you started doing those mystery boxes and those even the lives at the shows where you're showing animals, and you're also expanding that opportunity for other people who are maybe on the other side of the country or just can't attend that show, where you're giving them the opportunity to see the animals that you have at the expo as well, and have an opportunity to also make a purchase, is huge. Because I know for myself, being in Canada, I mean, like, the reality of me going to a Tinley or any of the expos in the States, like, I have to plan that, and it's expensive for me to go on that trip and then get a hotel and so on. And I would rather use all that money to be able to buy the animals than necessarily, like, of course it'd be nice to come and do some of those trips, and I do plan to on the future, but at the end of the day, I think it's really cool that you've expanded that and given that opportunity for other people to be able to see that online and be able to kind of participate. Is that so? Explain to me how that idea came about. Like, is that something that you just kind of woke up one day and you were like, oh, I think I'm going to start doing that? Or,
God, now I'm trying to remember, when did I start doing lives at shows?
I personally noticed them, I think it was last year, because I bought gecko mystery boxes from you last summer, not this summer.
So to take it back even a step further, for a long time I just didn't do shows. I went through a point in my life that was almost, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 years long, almost a decade long, that I got very, very introverted. I was, my mental health wise, not doing the best I ever have, and I just kind of got sucked into a place where I just continued to circle into that vortex. And part of that, the way it kind of manifested in the physical world, was I quit doing shows. It was just, there was a point in my life it was physically difficult, like physically painful for me to talk to other people. I just didn't like interacting. I would never be able to do something like this. Like, it physically hurt. I just couldn't do it. And I sat in my basement. And at that point, like, my face wasn't on social media. It was all just a faceless company, Altitude Exotics. So then when I started to try and find ways to break myself out of that, I don't know why it took me 10 years to decide this is a crappy way to live, but it did. And so I very pointedly was like, I'm going to start doing shows again. I had started to break out of that intentionally prior to doing shows. And then at one point I decided, I need to do a show. The first one I did was the big show in Vegas, was the first show. I don't think I did a live from that show. I think it was the next one after that I started doing lives. Mostly it was just, as I've gotten out of that place that I spent so many years in, that dark place, now, life is so much better when you share things you love with other people. And I do that sometimes to my friend and family's detriment, where I'm just obsessively sharing new music and new things that I love, to the point that some people are like, Brian, please, another Sleep Token song. Can we stop? I get it. But it was the same thing where it's like, I have so much fun now that I'm like, I've rediscovered how much I love interacting with people and talking and making connections and making new friends, that I'm like, can I share this with more people? Like, what if we go live? And I'm genuinely that excited when I'm doing shows. It's fun. There's animals everywhere. There's reptile people all over. There's new plants that I've never seen. And I think it was just kind of born out of like, let's bring more people into this experience. Like, there's not enough people here at the show to satisfy this, so let's bring more in. Let's let other people participate too. I think that's mostly what it was. Is it's just fun to interact with people, and I wanted to just give people the chance to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's fun because everyone can kind of engage, right? It brings that community together. And then, like, I have to say, like, when you started doing them, I was really excited because you get only small kind of insight into these things where you're seeing someone post a YouTube video, which would be a recap after the expo, right? And you know, some breeders will go on and they'll do a live and they'll be live at their booth and stuff, and they're just talking about the show. But it was kind of really exciting to see what was on the table, you know, and what you had. And then someone would want to see something and you'd pull something out and be like, here it is, you know? And with the fancy gold mystery boxes, I was sitting there and I was like, oh, I'd really love to get a mystery box. And then I messaged him like, can it be exported to Canada? And you're like, yes. So then my husband's like, oh, I'll buy you a mystery box for your birthday. So then we ended up getting them. And then the excitement of opening it on the live, right? And the thing I find that you do great about the mystery boxes is, from my experience anyways, from seeing the ones that you've opened, I don't see how anyone could be disappointed in what they get out of the mystery box. Because for the most part, you know, you're putting really nice animals in those mystery boxes.
Yeah, that's something else I feel pretty passionate about. One of my pet peeves in life is I'm very tuned into advertising. It was one of the career paths I pursued prior to geckos, was going into high-end advertising. And I just, to some people it's not, because advertising works, but to me, the way I see advertising is like, this is all just, it's BS. Like, it is so obviously see-through crap that you're trying to sell me this. Companies get so excited about how great this new deal we're offering you is, and I look at it and all I see is, so you're telling me that you're so excited about your 25% off sale, plus this influencer can give me another 15% off. All that's doing is telling me the same crappy product, but you're actually overpricing it so heavy you can give me that discount and still make money.
Yeah.
But I'm not actually getting any more value. Like, I just hate crappy advertising. So I've always wanted to make it a point, especially with, like, there's a few times a year, like, obviously I have to make a living too, but there's a few times a year that I really, really try to be like, when I talk about how good these deals are, I'm not just giving you a line. Like, the mystery boxes, I want to make them that good that you feel like you've ripped me off. I obviously can't do that my entire life, my entire career, or I won't make money. I won't be able to pay my bills. But mystery boxes, like, they need to be that good. I don't want people to feel disappointed. I just think that's gross. How many times have you gone somewhere and done something in an event or stayed at a hotel and you left feeling like this was not worth what we paid to do this? Like, it's why I don't go to, like, we were talking about music, the big rock festivals.
Yeah.
I don't understand those, because people will go spend $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on a VIP weekend experience, and almost everyone I've talked to leaves going, that was not worth $7,000. Like, I don't want anybody to ever feel like that after having done business with me. I want, like, I always talk about my Black Friday sale is that big a deal. Like, that's the one time a year that I'm like, I'm going to sell geckos that I know I'm not going to be okay with the price that some of these geckos go for. Yeah. But it's become such a really big event that it's worth it to me. It's worth it. I want people to be happy. I want people to be excited to be able to participate in that. I want them to feel like it's really worth it.
Well, and then you've had, like, some of your mystery boxes. First of all, you have a cap on them, right? So you have so many boxes. It's not like
Yeah.
it's the never ending mystery boxes, right? Like you'll have, let's say, 10 boxes, and you're like, and one of them has a visual xanthic. Now the cost of the boxes are the same all across the board, and you're getting still like something of value, you know, and you're not feeling ripped off if you don't get the box with the visual xanthic. But the excitement that you might get the box with that xanthic is, you know, what makes it super fun for people who are participating.
Yeah.
And even if you don't get it, you're not disappointed. I know, like when I got mine, I was stoked with, and the lily that I have now, like glow up was amazing on that gecko. I can tell you, I am really excited to work with that it's tri red, right? Lily white that I have. So
Yeah.
he's beautiful. Um, but let's talk about your Black Friday sale, because that's coming up,
That
and
is
you've been
coming up.
putting a lot of work into that, right? So you've got
Yes.
lots of stuff coming up. Did you want to share some news on the Black? Like, is there stuff that you're able to talk about now before you start
Yeah, I'd
posting
love
things?
to. I've got all of the details sorted now, so I'd love to kind of break down how it's all going to work. God, I wish I could like somehow get people to see how much work goes into this, because it's like I keep telling my family, like I've now hit the frantically terrified excitement stage. I always go through stages of trying to set up a huge sale like this, because it is so logistically challenging to photograph and sort and post 300 geckos and hourly discounts, and like it's madness. It takes me 2.5 months to set this thing up, but it's so much fun. I absolutely love it. So this will be my 8th Black Friday sale. I'm gonna do essentially the same sale on my website that I usually do, where I've got about 220 geckos this year are going up on the website, altitudeexotics.com. And then I'm going to do the same hourly discounts for anybody that hasn't gone through one of these with me before. I start at 8 a.m. my time, Friday morning. So everything goes up for sale Thanksgiving Day. If there's something you want to buy at full price, you can buy it Thanksgiving Day. And then Friday morning at 8 a.m. my time, that's 10 a.m. on the East, I start posting videos every hour on the hour. And in every video, I announce what that hour's discount is. That discount's only good for that hour. And then the next hour, I come back, post another video, and the discount gets bigger and bigger and bigger every hour. So then it becomes a game where it's like, if you have your eye on this gecko, you can either buy it now for 10% off, or you can wait an hour and you'll get a bigger discount, but you don't know what that discount is going to be. And you don't know if the gecko's still going to be there. So then you get to play a game as the customer. How much is the risk of not getting the animal you want worth the reward of a bigger discount? And
and I know
all day long.
and I participated. Like I watched it last year, and it's a full day event. Like it's exciting to follow up. And I had a short list of 3 geckos, right? That I was like, okay, if I'm going to buy any, these are the 3 that I'm going to buy. So I'm like, okay. And as a consumer, you're playing your odds, right? Because you know the deals are going to get better as it goes through the day. But then you're like, okay, so I'm watching the short list, my top 3. I'm like, all right, okay, I'm going to wait a little longer. That gecko's gone now. Okay, I got down to 2. And you're like waiting a little longer, like, that gecko's gone now. And you're like, okay, that's it. I got to purchase that one because I'm not waiting any longer and then missing the chance. So it is that fun engagement that you have, and you have so much variety as well that goes on. Yeah, Gecko Room says the suspense. You know what, Mark? And my husband can attest to this. When I bought the gecko on Black Friday, we were at our neighbor's house and we were, having drinks and just hanging out. And I had stuff like going on and was watching it and keeping an eye on everything. And they were like, will you just turn that gecko stuff off now? Why you keep looking at this gecko thing? And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, I really need to get this gecko. So, like, it was a thing.
I want it to be fun and interactive. Like I want it to be a game. So it's like, it solves 2 problems for me. I want it to be fun and a game. And I also want, like I said, I want people to feel excited and happy and feel like they won something. And it's like, so I just put it into your hands. Like if you're happy paying this much for the gecko, pay it and you're happy. If you'll be happy paying this much, then wait 3 hours and you might be able to do that. It's like whenever you decide to pull the trigger, you're going to be happy about it because you made the choice. You got to pick the discount. You got to decide what your risk reward was. I think that's a lot of fun. But
And
this year, I'm bringing a whole new wrinkle to it.
okay,
If we have the second part in. So 220 geckos are going to be on the website. We're going to do the whole hourly discount, the whole gameplay. It goes for 13 hours all day Friday. It's absolutely exhausting. This year, I decided I'm going to make my life infinitely harder. While that's going on, the entire thing's going to be running, the hourly discounts, the website, the social media stuff. While that's going on, starting at noon my time, so 2 on the East, noon my time, I'm going to go live on the Palm Street app, and we're doing an 8-hour 100 gecko marathon auction. So I've got 86 separate auctions to do, 106 geckos total, and
wow.
I'm estimating it's going to take us about 8 hours to auction off all these. So I'm going to go live at noon. I'm going to be sitting right here. It'll look a little different. We'll go live at noon, and I'm going to live stream for about 8 hours, and we're going to just auction geckos all day long. So the auction's got 81 individual geckos and five mystery packs. So five gecko mystery packs. And the mystery packs I'm going to do very similar to how I've done them at shows. It'll be literally just a picture of a question mark you're bidding on. And then as soon as the auction ends, I'm going to unbox the mystery pack right there and show you and everybody on the live stream what you just won. And then we'll move on to the next geckos. Everything, I'm not holding any morphs out of this. It's not like you're going to be auctioning for my lower end stuff for a lot of Palm Street people. It's basically, you're bidding on wholesale stuff and they're just trying to get a few extra dollars out of their wholesale geckos.
Yep.
Not the way this is working. I got Axanthics, head Axanthics, lily white Axanthics, extreme Harlequins, high-end super dowels, chunky monkey babies, like the full gamut of everything I can bring, I'm bringing to the auction. We'll see. It could blow up in my face. It could be a really long day. My voice could go out 3 hours in and we'd be screwed. I'm not really sure how it's going to go, but I'm super excited for it. And then I know I'm rambling on and there's a lot to take in.
On the auction, though, for Palm Street, so it's going to be under Altitude Exotics, right on Palm Street.
Exotics, yeah.
Is it already set up? Like people can go and subscribe to you on Palm Street right now and set notification, or
yes, they should. I don't have the auction set yet. I'm doing a bunch of test videos because I'm trying to make sure that I have everything, the bugs worked out and all my ducks in a row, because I can't do an 8-hour live stream on a platform I've never used before and just cross my fingers that nothing goes wrong. So my account is live. You can find me on there. I've got people starting to follow me already, and yeah, it's gonna be a day. I'm excited for it. I got a special guest host. I'm flying a guest co-host in from across the country to help me run the entire thing. I'm gonna keep that a secret.
That was going to be my next question. Like, you're not doing this by yourself, are you?
I was going to, and then one of my sponsors. So that's the other thing to add on top. The most exciting news about everything I just told you, this ridiculous 350 gecko day. There's free shipping on absolutely everything. So I've partnered with Redline Shipping. I've always been partnered with them. Robin's one of the greatest guys I know, but they've come on to officially promote my Black Friday sale. So Redline Shipping has gotten behind me, and they've given me the ability to offer free shipping on absolutely everything. Every website order, every auction, every gecko on Black Friday ships for free. So auctions are all going to start at $49. Awesome. The first bid's $49, and it goes up from there. And shipping is free. So if you win a gecko for $49, it's $49. There is no shipping charge. I've got geckos on my website that start at $49. If you buy one of those, it ships for free. Your shipping is normally $59. So I'm really paying you $10 to take one of those geckos if you buy them.
So I want to take a minute and applaud Robin at Redline Shipping for that, because I know that there's been a lot of heat recently with Morph Market starting their own shipping, where there's been a lot of, discussion with, the private shippers and stuff being more expensive. So this is really nice to see and to promote and to show, like, look, like Redline's there helping support this event, and anyone who's buying a gecko is going to get free shipping, which is fabulous.
Yeah. I mean, I know your tea time in the gecko world is generally positive, so I don't know how much we want to get into the Morph Market shipping thing. I'm a big believer that competition is healthy. And what's going on at Morph Market is smoke and mirrors. You know, he comes out with these social media posts being like, "Oh, I'm the second coming of Jesus to the gecko world, here to save you all from the evil shipping companies. So I'm going to give everybody this huge discount." Well, for one, it's not a real company. I was baffled that when somebody asked on his post, "Hey, what happens if my box is delayed? Like, what's the customer service number?" And his answer was, "I don't have customer service. You can email me and try and track it." Like, this isn't a company. And anybody who thinks that this is good for the hobby, like, that's his whole promotion. Like, I respect the business, like, genius businessman. But anybody who's coming out and being like, "Oh, look at this guy wanting to help the industry." If you're foolish enough to think this guy's offering 65% discounts on shipping just because he wants to, like, he's losing money at that.
Yeah.
He's doing it to drive all the other shippers out of business. And once he has a monopoly, if you think you're still getting a 65% discount, you're lying to yourself. That's classic business 101, is become a monopoly and then jack the price up. I'm super pro competition. I want there to be more than one or two shipping options out there, but this isn't a healthy shipping option. It's a scorched earth approach to try and get a monopoly in the industry. So aside from my relationship with Robin, I'm just not a huge fan of that kind of business practice.
Well, listen, I love Robin, and we don't have many options in Canada, right, for shipping. So I was able to get his face packs. So I use the Redline face packs when I'm shipping geckos in Canada because I think it's awesome. But at the end of the day, like, they're living creatures, right? And you're sending them from one end of the country to the other. And to me, you want to make sure that you have, that you're using a service that that you can get a hold of someone, or, that you can track it, and that you have that additional support. Because I know for us, like, we had a situation where we had a boa that got shipped from BC, and it got really cold, and this animal was still on a skid at the Ottawa airport, and they hadn't brought it into FedEx yet, and it got delayed to ship out the next day. And we're like, no. So, like, you're able to contact, like, our company that we dealt with in Canada handled it great. Like, they went and they communicated with them, and we were able to have that middleman to help sort it out. We were able to go and pick up that animal that day at the hub, right, to ensure that the animal's welfare was good and that it wouldn't freeze that night. So, like, those are all extra perks. I mean, it's one of those things where I think you pay for what you get.
You do. Yeah, people don't think about what you're paying for in customer service, and that makes a huge difference. Like, another big one here in the States is Debbie. Especially in the gecko world, Debbie is absolutely beloved because she has top-notch customer service. It's one of the reasons I love Redline. Specifically AJ over at Redline is amazing. I have her cell phone number, and if I have an issue with a box, I just text AJ and say, "Hey, here's my tracking number. I got an issue with this box." And most of the time she gets back to me and says, "Hey, I already looked into that one. Here's what's going on with it." It's just, like you said, these are live animals. Like, these matter to me. This isn't just, like, it is my business. It is how I pay my bills, but it's not just how I pay my bills. I always tell people, so I'm not selling t-shirts. If I was selling t-shirts, which I do sell t-shirts, ironically, but when I sell t-shirts, I don't care. Like, I put this t-shirt in a bag and I ship it, and I don't ever check the tracking. I don't care unless I get a call from the customer saying, "Hey, I didn't get my shirt." I really don't care what happens to that t-shirt. The animals, I care what happens to them while they're with me, while they're in transit, while they're at their new home. They're living creatures. Like, we owe them that.
Before we hop back on the Black Friday details, did you end up getting a patch done for the Redline? You know, when they did the patches for the fanny pack thing that he came out? Do you have an altitude? You didn't?
Do not. I never, at the time that all was getting rolling, Robin was, like, all over me trying to get me to do patches, and I had so much other stuff going on. I was like, I'm already overwhelmed with things in my life. It's just one thing I can't put on my plate already. So I didn't end up doing that, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. So what else are we looking at for Black Friday? Because before I cut you off with the Redline praise.
Yeah, so
And
those
we were getting
those
to
are
something
those are the
else.
broad strokes. So 200 plus geckos on the website, growing hourly discounts, an 8-hour marathon live auction event. So the last thing with the auction, I will have a preview up by the end of today on my website at altitudeexotics.com. There's going to be a new page added. I'm building it right now, where you'll be able to see geckos numbered 1 through 86, all 86 individual auctions in order. So you don't have to be there for 8 hours. I'll be there for 8 hours because I'm a madman. I'm just insane. You don't have to do that. So you can look at the preview and say, I like geckos 12, 76, 13, what, you'll pick them out. And then just pop into the auction and see, I want to bid on gecko 20 and he's on number 19. I should hang out for a few minutes. Or I want to bid on 72 and he's only at 45. You don't have to sit there and watch for 8 hours. You'll know in advance what the lineup is, what you want to bid on, and we can go from there. The auctions are going to be quick. It's going to be rapid fire, so that they're 2-minute auctions. It'll be fairly quick. They all start at $49, so there's no, a cheap Harlequin's going to start at $49 and sell for $60, and a Xanthic Lily White is going to start at $49 and go up from there.
Okay. Awesome. Any other little, it's a lot. I don't know how you're going to do this. And I'm glad you have someone to come help you.
I told you backstage.
So many logistics to this.
Oh, it's so insane. Like I've got to fly people in from across the country. I got pages upon pages of websites to build. I got to preload all the auctions in Palm Street. Just the photos alone for 300, almost 350 animals took me basically 3 weeks of every single moment that I wasn't feeding geckos. I was taking pictures, and it was this like 16-hour work days for 3 weeks trying to take photos of animals. I love it. It's so much fun.
So when do we get to see your special guest? Is it going to be when you go live on Palm Street that we get to see who it is?
Pretty much, yeah. I don't think I'm going to tell anybody before that. I'll probably do the first hour or two of the auction solo, because I'm bringing someone else in. Most of the time, it'll be both of us, but there needs to be times that like I can go eat lunch, or the other person can go eat lunch, or so there'll be scheduled times where it's like I'll probably start for 2 hours and then have them with me for 2 hours, and then we'll trade off taking a break. So most of the time it'll be the two of us. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna keep it a secret until they walk in and sit down on camera Black Friday about noon that day.
That's awesome. Why don't we hop into, like, you sent some pictures to me of some of your favorite projects that you're working on, and I think this would be fun to kind of look at some of the animals you sent my way, and we can talk about some of these projects. So tell me about
this. Not that I want to be just the consummate salesman, but very quickly, all of the pictures that I sent you that we're going to talk about my favorite project, these are all Black Friday geckos. So everything
that's awesome.
You can purchase on Black Friday, including
all for sale.
All of this is for sale. This is a super empty back. This is one of my favorite projects. I just think those are the coolest looking geckos ever.
Awesome. Okay, so tell me about this project here. So
this one's been kind of a convoluted mess, but just the way the empty back gene has started, because it was kind of a project that several different people were now realizing in the gecko world were all starting at the same time. And it got even more convoluted because at least 2 of us named it empty back almost a decade before we knew the other person existed. And at first it was, Little Monsters Reptiles has gotten pretty deep into the empty back world, and they talk about, they saw an empty back from Alan Rapace back in 2009, 2010-ish, something like that, I think. And they originally started trying to reproduce that gecko, whereas I started with Super Stripes from Caponetto in 2010, 2011. And my goal was just to get Super Stripes with the widest back stripe possible.
Okay.
And then we kind of each did that independently for 10 years or so, refining it and trying to figure out what it was before it's now recognized that it's not Super Stripe, it's separate, and it's not just, for a long time, the prevailing theory was it was Super Stripes that you just selectively breed to get a wider and wider dorsal. I thought for a while, because so many of my empty backs are either hypo or soft scale or both, that I was for a while under the impression that adding hypo into a super stripe, because hypo can sometimes limit pattern production to an extent
Okay.
as well. So that was my theory was, if we added hypo into super stripes and it limits the pattern production, and that's why the dorsal is so much wider. It's been kind of a road to get to where we are now that it's, I think, much more clearly understood how it breeds and how to produce these things.
Yeah.
It's been a fun, I don't know, 14 years or so chasing it down, but God, the results we're getting now are incredible.
Yeah. I mean, empty back is one of my big projects I work with here. And I think one of the frustrations as of late is the name, the controversy of calling it a head empty back versus empty back and super empty back. And
Me and you have talked about that off camera quite a bit. I vehemently disagree with the het empty back. There is no such thing as a het empty back. And if there is, then there is certainly no such thing as a super empty back. Like there's 3 stages, and you can't jump from 1 to 3 and just skip the middle one for.
Yeah.
To me, they're empty backs and super empty backs. That's the nomenclature that the entire reptile industry has used for 40 years. And I don't see a need to change that to be scholarly correct. It just confuses the heck out of everybody. So in my book, they're empty backs and super empty backs. The supers are, I really, really am looking forward to getting like hypo red super empty backs.
Okay.
I think are going to be the next real focus I have. That and empty back caps and frappuccinos. I've started that project this year. I've got a handful of empty back caps and fraps that are coming along that I think are pretty promising as well.
Okay, that's exciting. Yeah, it's kind of neat to see the different directions that everyone's taking empty back in, right? Like it's, like myself, like I'm doing lilies with it.
Mm-hmm.
And, some people, and I do have a cap as well that I have for that project, but like it's neat that you're taking it to the fraps and the reds. And the hypo reds, and to see it, like it'll interact differently in different ways that you're using it in different projects. Like mine are very heavy and yellow.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main base that I have a lot of my empty backs in, or more of that, like the darker bases. But yeah, so awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to see. So, and this one is going to be on the Black Friday sale.
That one is. Yeah.
And then tell me about this project.
Just basic, like, these are basic tricolor extreme Harleys. I've always loved extreme Harleys. They seem to be on a downswing right now. They got super, super popular. Like during the last 5 years or so, like a really high-end tricolor was so hot and everybody was chasing them. They're definitely on a downward trajectory, but like I said before, I try not to breed. I try not to chase what's popular market-wise. I try to chase what is popular to my eyes. And these are, I need to cut this project back because I'm overproducing them right now. Last year, especially last year, I remember setting up my breeding pairs last year, and I had so many extremes, and I was just looking at them like, I don't know which one I can possibly justify not breeding, and now I have way too many because I just love them. I love how thick the white on the sides is. I've brought in some of Flawless Crested Geckos bloodlines. They are so good. Those two are so good at getting high white extreme Harlequins that I just have to bring in some of the stuff crossing their bloodlines with mine has given me the best results on getting that high white pattern on the sides. I just love it.
And I love how you talk about the projects like that. You have an ultimate goal, right? There's things that you're not just breeding tries for the sake of breeding tries. You're like, oh, I really want to get that high white, and the things with tries is cool is because you can get such a cool contrast with the colors and where it really pops, right?
Yeah. That's another one where adding hypo or soft scale or both in makes a huge difference, where the pattern gets so much crisper and like all the lines between the patterns, almost like the opposite of pixel, where they get kind of, the edges get fuzzy and broken up. These ones, when you add hypo in, all of the lines get so defined and crisp. And I love that look where it looks like you took a black gecko and painted orange on and then painted white on, and you can actually see the layers and the crisp definition between all the different layers. Like, I just think it's fascinating.
That's awesome. Yeah, tries are very pretty for sure. I have a couple. Tries not something that I focus on myself, but I have produced a couple, and I'm having a hard time letting them go.
If you want to expand that project, this one
Yeah.
will be available for Black Friday.
As I switch over to the dowels.
The super dowels, my goodness, do I love supers. This is like my shining example of breed what you love, not what's popular.
Yeah.
I very early on, I identified super dowels, both ink spots and confettis. I love them both. And early on, I knew that that was something I wanted to focus on. And super dowels, I think more than any morph, go through giant swings in popularity. When I first got into them, they were hugely, like, this was pre Facebook, like we were back on the old Rapashi forums going on and on about super. That's how I ended up being really good friends with Sam at Crestopia. Was we were just both so into super dowels back in 2009, and they've gone through probably 3 or 4 swings in my career where they're super popular and people are fighting over the best ones, and then within 2 years they drop off the map and nobody cares about super dowels. You can't move them, you can't sell them, nobody wants them. And 3 years later, they're the hottest thing. They're all the rage. Everybody wants an ink spot. I think it's fascinating why, like, really nice pinstripes have always been popular. Tricolors have always been popular.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in most things, the more refined and the higher quality they get, the more popular they get, and then they hit a peak and they come back down. Super dowels have been all over the place. It doesn't matter how nice they are, how many you breed. One year people love them, the next year people can't stand spots.
Yeah, well, and we kind of went through a little bit of a phase 2 of just spots in general, right? Where people were getting really worried about finding spots on a pattern animal, or it doesn't have spots. I don't want spots. So that also impacts dowels, right? Because if you're putting all that pressure on, I don't want spots, then by default, people don't want spots in general.
That's one of my favorite comments to get on social media is when I post a gecko like this, inevitably, especially on the years that dowels are on a downswing, you'll post something like this. And that's kind of like my barometer for when are dowels going to get more popular again. It's when I start getting the comments of, oh, I can't stand spots. I've never been a spot fan, but this gecko is incredible. And I'm just looking at them like, bro, all the geckos are incredible. You think you don't like spots. What you're telling me is you actually like spots. You just don't think you're supposed to like spots.
Yeah.
I guarantee 2 years later, that person is buying super dowels like crazy. And then 2 years after that, I'm getting comments going, I really hate spots, but that's a nice gecko. It's hilarious.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, no.
Again.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've noticed now that I'm doing like vending and stuff, and we don't have many options in Canada to vend, but the spotted ones are always the fan favorite with the people looking to get animals as pets, right? With the kids, even like adults will come over and they'll think it's endearing. They'll like, oh, it has a spot, and those are always the first to go. So like when you're posting things on Instagram or selling to other breeders, you find that there's a more of a pushback against spots, but at the expo it's a completely different vibe.
Yep, I think it's especially like during COVID when prices went absolutely nuts. Even then, I would have a table and I'd have Axanthics on it at $20,000 each, and a family will come up and see the $179 Dalmatian, and they all look at it and go, "Oh, it's so cute! It's got freckles. That's my favorite." Whereas every gecko person came up and freaked out because I got visual Axanthics at the show. Every person who's not a gecko person comes up and just thinks the spotted ones are the best.
Yeah, actually, the last expo that we did, I had someone come up and say, "Oh, do you have one with spots? I'm looking one that has spots." I'm like, "Are you looking for a dowl?" No. I just want one with a lot of like different things going on, and they just want spots. And it just so happened I didn't have any that time that actually had a spot, because sometimes you're worried. You're like, do you want to put something on there that has a spot, or and when you're having limited space on what you can bring and put on the table, it makes it a little bit more challenging. I kind of had a mindset for a little bit where I wanted everything to be clean. And then I got a yellow lily white with red spots on her and some black spots, and I just fell in love with it. And now it's kind of now I have some dowels that I'm growing up with portholes, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have a little side dowel project. Is that they
What happens?
definitely
They
grow
weed
on
their
you.
way in there.
What's that?
So that's how it happens. They weed their way in, and then all of a sudden you've got a dowel project, and you're starting to like them.
Yeah, and then we fall into your next dowel. So these are the red spot dowels.
Yeah, the confetti dowels. These ones are. This is the project. Like people always ask me, "What's your favorite gecko?" And like the Axanthics are just a whole nother beast. Those changed my whole life. Tricolors are fun, but if you want to get into like what am I most proud of, it's these ones. The
Okay.
Axanthics, like I've done, I think, pretty good work with the Axanthics, but at the end of the day, I got Axanthics and I made more of them. And even where they first came from, it was just it's a fluke. All of the Axanthic lines that have popped up is a fluke, and you know I've been able to refine them and add things and do fun stuff with them. But for some reason, the confetti spots. When I go back and look at when I started working with red spots in 2009, the geckos I started working with, like now I would look at them and go, "That's a wholesale gecko." Like I don't even know why I have that one. It's nothing compared to what I have now. And these ones I have so much pride in because I didn't find some ridiculous one-off incredible confetti breeder that I can then replicate. I didn't buy one from somewhere else and
Yeah.
replicate it. I took geckos that had a small handful of little red spots, and over 15 years have turned them into this. They're not always the most popular, but as far as like what I look at when I go, that's what I'm most proud of. It's the work I've been able to do with the red spots. It's almost entirely been done in-house. I'm
Yeah.
fascinated by it. I love it. It just makes me happy.
Well, and that's the thing, the good point that you said, like, you started with something that didn't have necessarily the nicest structure or look. And I think people forget that, it's not always just a matter of putting two absolutely stunning geckos together and that you're going to make magic. Like sometimes it's important to kind of have more of a focused project and work towards a goal and
Yeah,
trying to see if you can isolate the best attributes of each animal, and be able to produce something even nicer that outshines their parents, right? And you see that
exactly.
when with new genetics, like when Cappuccino came out. I mean, the Cappuccinos weren't out there with big heads and crests and stocky looking animals. I mean, they had a lot slimmer head, and it's like that over time and the selective projects and breeding and working towards an ultimate goal of having an animal kind of more not morph but like eventually getting to that goal that takes
Yeah,
time.
and that's where you find success and longevity. It's I constantly see people that come to me and say, "Oh, I don't want to buy an Axanthic because they have bad structure." I'm like,
Mhm.
so make them with better structure. Like if you're
Yeah.
trying to find only perfect geckos to then produce only perfect geckos, you're not going to be here very long because that's not what breeds longevity. What
Mhm.
breeds like there was a point when I first got into this game, nobody remembers this, but it was it was considered common knowledge that geckos with a red base color had small heads. And it was considered a fact that genetically, if you make a gecko red colored, it cannot grow big crests, which is ridiculous, obviously.
Yeah.
But nobody had put in the work to improve head structure on red based geckos because back then, red based geckos were somewhat rare as it was. And it was just a well known fact that genetically red geckos don't have good structure. And then that got proved wrong. And then the
Yeah.
same thing happened with the Axanthic. Even though two of the first three visual Axanthics, when I first got the project, there were three visuals that existed. And two of them had great structure. One of them didn't. But a lot of the subsequent offspring didn't have great, they looked a lot like this gecko here. Not bald, but not great structure. And there was a lot of people that said, I can't breed Axanthics. They don't have good structure. It's like they're geckos. They all have the same structure. If it's not what you want, make it better. That's
Make
our
it what you want.
like if you're just trying to buy perfection, like I don't want to go out and buy perfection. I want to create perfection. I want to it's one of my
Yeah.
favorite things about this job. My cousin gives me crap all the time. She's like, "You have a God complex. You know that, right?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "That's what you do for a living is play God." Like you brag about how cool it is that you can visualize an animal that has never existed on Earth and then go in your basement, tinker with some stuff and make it and like create a thing that has never existed and would never exist without your input. I'm like, all right, when
Yeah.
you put it like that, like you make it sound like I have a god complex.
You're like, oh, maybe you're right.
But that's what I love to do. Like, you want a confetti with huge structure, so make a confetti with huge structure. That's what makes this fun to me. Going out and buying perfect geckos and making more perfect geckos that's not exciting.
Yeah. And there's always something, like someone will do something that pops out that's new and innovative, and people will see it, and and it kind of refreshes maybe the look. Like, for instance, an example for the dowels, you saw kind of like a downswing in the dowels, and then Gamus came out with their Lotto line,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone was just like, wow, that is cool, right? And I think you got to see the Lotto line in person, at an
I
expo.
did. I think it was in Dallas, I believe, was the show I saw them at.
Okay. Like, for me, that for seeing that just kind of sparked into me. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And you can, like, the unknown and the stuff that still hasn't been made, or that
Right?
that could happen with dowels that people are maybe not working with because they're worried about spots.
Yep.
Yeah, no, very exciting. And you had a project too where you were working on red spots with different bases, right? So like yellow base, or
Yeah,
I
I've
don't know
been
if you had a
for years
lavender
to
one
get.
either, or
I've never really tried lavender base,
okay.
mostly because it's so hard to get patternless lavenders. Like, light colored phantoms just don't happen very easily. Most of them
Yeah.
fire up dark and then the spots disappear. And my focus was always like, I looked at a gecko like this and I went, well, how cool would those red spots be if they looked so much brighter because they were on a really light yellow, almost white gecko.
Yeah.
And for what has it been, 15 years I've been trying to do that, and I've had very little luck getting red spots on yellow geckos. It's become
Okay.
like a famous podcast talking point for Brian, going, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I can't get red spots on yellow geckos, but damn it, I'm still going to try. And then a year later, I pop up on another podcast and go, yeah, I still don't have yellow geckos with red spots. I'm kind of
Well, you
hoping
know what? There's
enough.
always one day. You never know. One time you might try it and it might be just the right combination, and then boom.
The best one I ever got with like a bright, clean yellow base and red spots was actually a head axanthic girl. And then I'm
Okay.
like, well, and it was really, really early in the axanthic line, like
Okay.
the first couple years. And I was so mad. I'm looking at her going, I finally got the thing I was trying to produce. And I can't even use her for that project because she's so much more valuable as an axanthic producer than a red spot producer.
Yeah. Well, now that you have, you're so ahead of your Xanthic projects, you might be able to revisit that.
Yeah. Every year I'm trying to pair new things and see what kind of yellows I can get to pop out. Maybe,
Yeah.
like I said, maybe I'm just doing something wrong and somebody else will figure it out. And if they do, I'm going to be thrilled.
You're like, share the info. Tell me
I
what you did.
failed. Someone else needs to succeed where I cannot, please.
All right. So let's talk about this gecko.
Speaking of axanthics, I mean,
Yeah.
these are just the best things. So the axanthic project, I've always loved axanthic animals. For years before they existed, I was always sad there weren't axanthic Cresties, and nobody cared and nobody talked about it because the milestone was always, oh, when are we going to see an albino Crestie? To this day, I get people that ask me all the time, when are we going to see an albino? That's what everybody wanted. And the whole time I was going, God, I'd like to see an axanthic one. Those are cool. Like, I was looking at ball pythons and everything else that come with them. I was like, those are just cool looking animals. I just want one of those. And then when they first popped up, I remember the first day I saw one was on the old Rapashi forums. Some person who had just created their account that day, and nobody had ever heard of, posted a picture of a little black and white gecko sitting on a Canon camera lens cap.
Okay.
And they're like, oh, I hatched this weird thing out. I just thought I'd share it with people on the forum. And I instantly knew what it was, like without a doubt in my mind. Everybody
You're like,
else,
I want that.
you need to put a message to that day. I was like, I probably came across like just a conceited dick because I was just like, hey, look, you need to sell me this project. I'm the guy that you need to give this to. Like, please let's talk about moving this over here. And she's like, no, I think I'm gonna hold on to these. They're pretty neat. And a bunch of other people were going, oh, you need to post videos. These are fake. You photoshopped it. I'm like, no, I think this is real. And I was hooked right away. I got very lucky. I was very persistent and somehow did not offend her to the point of just blocking me. It was very, very clear at first that I'm not selling any of these. I'll keep you in mind if I ever bring one to market. And it was about, God, I think it was a year later. We'd kind of kept in touch and talked. And I think it was about a year later that she had finally come to me and was like, hey, I totally underestimated like what it would take to do this.
Yeah.
And, she, at that point, her and her now husband lived in a tiny flat in London. She's like, I have 6 geckos. Like, I didn't realize what a project like this could turn into. I need to move on from these. And they were so convoluted. The first deal was for like 2 of the babies, and then it was 2 babies and a handful of adults. And then there was all kinds of deals about not bringing them to market here and selling some back there. It was the most convoluted deal, and I just didn't care because I just needed to get them.
Yeah.
And then eventually she called and was like, I just can't do this. Do you just want to buy the entire bloodline? I'll sell you every gecko I have. So I said,
like, absolutely.
Yeah. It cost me by today's standards, it's a different world. Back then it cost me just an unbelievable, unheard of amount of money in the gecko world.
Yeah.
And, I got very lucky. The whole reason, because everybody was hitting this girl up trying to get the Azanthics. Catherine is her name. And just by happenstance, she called me one day and she was like, I talked it over with my fiance and we really think you're the right person to bring this project to because Nick is from Denver. He lives in London now. Her now husband, Nick, was born and raised in Denver, and you've been really nice and you're from his hometown. And, we go back there to visit, so we'd be able to come meet you in person. So we think you're the right person for the job. I was like, I've never been so happy to be from Denver.
Like, yes. Yeah, no, and and I think people don't realize how big of a project it is when you're getting into a recessive project, right? Because of all the holdbacks, and that it's not something that you're wanting to necessarily release or sell if it's like put out there, if it's a new project, because then you have the opportunity that other people are going to make it by breeding those hats. So it's a huge commitment to take something on like that.
And she was, a lot of credit. Catherine's an amazing person. We still keep in touch to this day. She has 2 kids now. They have 2 little kids. They've moved out to the suburbs. Beautiful family. Her daughters are adorable. And she hit me up, I don't know, about a year ago and was like, hey, I'd kind of like to share this experience of what I used to do with my kids. Like, I know we had some convoluted deal that I could buy some yada, 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 whatever. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm just sending you geckos. Like, if any of us had known what this would blow up into, then I just completely ripped you off for the price I paid for them because we had no idea what it was going to turn into. So there's no discussion about you buying anything from me. And I shipped her a handful of breeders, and she now hatches just a few Azanthics with her kids just to give her
nice.
little kids the experience too. Yeah, it was awesome. Fantastic.
I think the next one too is Axanthic
pinstripe. So this is one of the first combos that I started to try and make. So, when I first started working with Azanthic, so we talk about how long it takes to bring it to market. Credit to Catherine. One of her concerns was getting a big breeder would get it and just breed parents and children and siblings all together in mass. And she really wanted to avoid that. So part of my agreement was I had to sign an agreement with her saying I wouldn't breed direct siblings or parents and children back together.
Okay, fair enough.
I was concerned about keeping the genetics strong. So that obviously pushed my timeline out way more.
Yeah.
And then I think it was almost 5 years before when I got them to when I first started selling the very first ones. It was about 5 years.
Okay.
And one of the first projects that I started to do was Axanthic pinstripes. I thought that would be really neat to see, because at that point they were all just plain black geckos, and that was one of the ways I thought to maybe get some white color onto them was add in pinstripes. At that point, lily whites didn't even exist yet, so the only way to get white onto them was to put pinstriping to them, which I think has worked to fantastic.
Yeah, no, the pinstriping it pops right on them. And I think is it the person who has chocho as well that has a similar thing where individuals that are getting into chocho, there's an agreement where, you can't breed back to siblings to have that diversity, right,
I
within the
don't know.
project.
I haven't talked much about that. I've been offered chochos, and after learning some of the lessons that we've learned I want to be very careful how I say this.
Okay.
Or maybe I don't, and I should just say it. I very pointedly told the main broker that I work with in Korea to move stuff back and forth when I was offered chochos. I pretty pointedly told them I'm not interested in buying morphs out of Korea because I've seen how you guys breed. And their only goal is to overbreed stuff as fast as humanly possible to make as much money as humanly possible. And I very honestly told him I'm not interested in buying stuff that comes out of Korea because, like, unless you're giving it to me at true wholesale gecko pricing, I'm never going to make my money back, because I buy one. At the time, I was offered a visual chocho for $15,000.
Yeah, the price
is
pretty high.
at 70. So this was a year ago. I was offered one at 15. I was like, even at 15, and they started at 70,000. By the time the baby I buy gets to adulthood, you guys are going to be selling them wholesale for $500 because you breed stuff so fast and so heavy. It's just not worth it. I don't care how cool they are. It's never going to be worth it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is not getting sucked into like a chasing something. Like if people are already ahead of it, right, and they're already working, you have to look at the value it's going to bring to you if you're going to invest in a project like that, especially a recessive one, when you're having to hold back so much. And then if you already feel like you're going to be behind the game on it because it's a new project for you and you haven't had anything established, then that's definitely a decision factor.
It is, and it's space to make something like that work. I would have to buy not just one. I'd have to buy a bunch of them and then dedicate a chunk of my facility to just trying to mass produce those to catch my own numbers up and be able to sell some. It's like, I don't have that kind of space. That's not any fun. I don't know enough about that gene. Like, to me, it would be, okay, let me buy 2 or 3 if I have a direction. What do I want to do? Like, if I have some new combo or some direction, some goal I want to reach with them, then the price is less of an issue to me. The price is what the price is, and if I think chasing that goal is worth it, I'm going to buy them. I don't have a goal for chochos. If I had a goal, I would go do them. There's other projects I bought into that I had a goal, some of which worked out, some of which blew up massively in my big dumb face, but I had a goal.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Let's pop into the next one. Now this is a frap, right? Or
Yeah, that's an axanthic lily white.
Axanthic. Oh yeah, that's right. The color is a little off on my end. Yeah, very, very bright.
That one's one of my favorites with that highlighter gene I talk about sometimes. I don't know why the axanthic gene doesn't affect it, because axanthic takes out all the yellow and red color, so they're obviously very monochrome. But that highlighter gene, a lot of people think it's exclusive with lily whites because that's where you see it the most, because lily whites have the most white on them, so it shows up so bright. But it's not. You can see it in all kinds of different animals, especially if you look at how they get the white fringing along the back legs, or their the mouth right here on the corner of the mouth that's always white. The yellow shows up right there. So you can see it in Dalmatians, Harlequins. I've got non-lily white axanthics that have these weird yellowish undertones to them because of this gene. But obviously when you add lily white to it, the whole thing just goes up to another level. It gets so neon yellow bright sometimes that I think it's just cool to have a gecko that genetically can't make yellow pigment, and then the whole thing is neon highlighter yellow color.
Have you tried to work in like tangerine and stuff into the axanthics? Like, have you noticed, like, what are you finding with that?
I haven't. I kind of wonder if highlighter and tangerine are the same thing or if they're very closely related. there's enough variation even in one mutation in the gecko world. There can be enough variation that is tangerine and highlighter the same thing. And when it's a little more orangey, we call it tangerine. And if it's more yellow, we call it highlighter. Or are they separate things that are just different colors? I don't really know the answer to that. I don't work a whole ton with too many tangerines, so I haven't tried to work them into axanthics yet.
Okay. Yeah, no, it'd be interesting to see. And that's the exciting thing with axanthic is that there's so much still undiscovered with it, right? Like, and I had come across some pictures, and I want to say, I can't remember if it's in Korea or somewhere, but they had made these like blood red axanthic looking things where it was very, very like red. And I don't know if that's maybe a tangerine. They were talking about maybe it being a tangerine influence on the scale on the axanthic. If you haven't seen those, I'll flip you pictures offline after because it was really neat.
Just send me a picture. I'd be curious to see them.
Yeah, it was really cool looking.
Interesting.
And then we got a lily here.
Lily, so this kind of brings me back to my red roots. My red project got gutted pretty heavily when I had to come up with funds to buy the axanthics because were the most valuable geckos I had at the time, and it got gutted pretty hard for that. And then I got what really reignited that fire for reds for me was lily whites. I love red-based lily whites. I just think the combination it's just beautiful. I love that red and white base color, almost like a Christmas gecko.
Yeah. Lilies hold a special place in my heart. Like I love lilies, and I know that it's kind of gets similar to with the dowels, right? They kind of have been doing this where they kind of come back and people see some really cool lilies and there's interest in lilies again, and then everyone doesn't want lilies again. And you kind of, for me, I'm like, you put lily in it, it instantly makes it better.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think all the other morphs have kind of propped up the lily market. I was a big prophesizer that the lily market was going to crash, and we would get this resurgence of other morphs that kind of went by the wayside, like red pinstripes and C2 hypos and all this stuff was like they were going to die off because lilies would be the rage, and then lilies would get so overbred they would die off. And that really didn't happen, I think, mainly because lilies opened so many combos. Like the axanthic gene definitely propped up the lily market because every person who bought axanthics then immediately went to shop for the nicest lilies to mix the two together. And then right as that was starting to die off, then caps and fraps came in and it redid the whole thing again. And now sables are doing it. And now I expect pixels and empty back are going to do the exact same thing where everybody's going to die for an empty back and then immediately want a lily white to breed it with, or everybody's going to fight over getting a pixel and then immediately want a lily white to breed it with.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things because you're like, oh, what can I do with this? Can I make it, how far can I take it with the lily? Right. Talking about the market, it might be a good segue to like maybe get your thoughts on how you feel things are right now, because I know that there's been a lot of people openly discussing that they're frustrated with how things are going with the market, and I see it as no matter what in sales, you're always going to see this. There's always going to be hills and valleys where, things get really good like we had during COVID, and then it has to kind of level itself out, and then we'll get back to kind of a level playing field, and then you'll get another peak again. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm pretty vocal that I'm the opposite of all the market doomsdayers. I'm a huge proponent that the market isn't bad. The market is bad relative to people's expectations, and people's expectations are very, very flawed. There's a lot of people. COVID really screwed everything up because there was such a big influx into a lot of industries. The car world went nuts in COVID. The pet industry in general went absolutely bonkers. And we see that in the gecko world. And there was so much money and success was so easy to come by that there was a lot of people that suddenly realized I can do this for a living. And now they're doing it for a living. And now they're realizing that COVID boom is gone, but they still want to do this for a living and there's not a market to support it. So they're
Yeah.
emphasizing, oh, the market is so bad. No, the market's not bad. Your expectations are bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people over the years hit me up and say, well, what do I need to do to be a full-time breeder like you are? And there's only ever been one person that I've looked at and said, I think you can do this. Like, I think you have what it takes to do this full time. One person in 16 years that I've ever looked at and said, you can do
Wow.
it. Everybody else, the best analogy, I was told this years and years and years. I was told it as a way to temper my expectations about what I could end up achieving, which to me, it just pissed me off and made me work harder. It's now ironic that I tell other people not to try and work as hard as I did because you're not going to make it. But the analogy I was given was, a lot of people think they're going to make a career out of breeding reptiles, when in reality, your goal shouldn't be this is my income. Your goal should be this is the reason I get to buy a BMW instead of a Honda. It's not. But if you can get successful enough that your life is a little bit better with it, like that should be the ceiling for most people.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is. Like pre-COVID, the market, I think, could support 3 of us that bred full time, and then a myriad of hobby breeders below that. And that's just how big the market is. Now, coming out of COVID, we're getting back to that point where there's 20 plus full-time breeders, and we're finding out that it doesn't support it. And all these people are panicking because they quit their jobs. And like, I feel for them. It's devastating for your dreams and your goals and your families and everything. But if the market's not there, the market's not there. It's not like the gecko market is that bad. We're just returning. Like I look at my own numbers. Like I've got 16 years of data, and my sales numbers are better this year than they were the year 2019 before COVID started.
Okay. Wow.
Like the market's not bad. The market's better than it was pre-COVID. There's just so much more demand on the market that people think this is my career now, and it's just not going to be. And that's heartbreaking, bad, but it is what it is.
And that's the thing is it's all relative to everyone's individual situation, right? Like how much, how are you branding yourself? How, what are you working with? What's available? Where are you within the country? Like there's so many factors that can impact your success at it. At the end of the day. And I think that's where the people don't necessarily take into consideration all those factors. And then you can just jump on the bandwagon. Oh yeah, the market's crap. Oh yeah, the market's crap. Because, you personally aren't being very successful at it or struggling for whatever reason. Right. So it's kind of refreshing to hear that other side, and to hear that actually that you're doing really well compared to 2019. And, and at the end of the day, there's going to be, a wave. It's not always going to be the same from year to year. Some years are more challenging than other years.
Those waves definitely, like I purposely cut down my breeders because I knew, like I've done this long enough, I could foresee this is a down year. I've sold for a long time. Usually it's about a 3-year cycle that goes up and down. And then in that cycle, there's a yearly cycle where especially early every spring and late every fall are down times. And then summer is an uptime, like late spring and late summer are up times, and then it drops, and the winter is just kind of flat because everybody shuts down because there's nothing going on.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think we definitely went over an hour mark, like almost an hour.
I kind of knew we would.
Knew it would happen. Yes. I think before we close off and promote and pimp your stuff out where people can find you and stuff, one thing I want to mention is that you started the free gecko giveaways, which is its own website, right? So you want to talk to us a little bit about that and the concept, and I can see you have the enclosure right beside you too.
I'm gonna move it over. I got the enclosure here. It looks a lot better in the photo there with proper light. So my whole idea with this was buying gecko food is boring. Like we all have to buy gecko food. We got geckos to feed. So my goal was like, well, like I had thought for a long time about starting a dry goods side, selling gecko food and caging supplies. And then the question in my head was, but why? Like, what can I offer? There's a bunch of people that already do this. So why would I do it? I don't want to do it just, I could make a little money selling some food. That's not fun for me. What's fun? So then I thought, well, what if I made it like a sweepstakes based company that you could give stuff away?
Yeah.
And I partnered with Zen Habitats, is where all my cages for the giveaways come from. When I was
Which they
looking,
now have it in black, which is awesome.
they do. They have black, they have bamboo, they have oak. They're going to do
Yeah.
special panel colors. So I started talking to them, and I really fell in love with their business. With the owner, Randy, is fantastic. He's now a very good friend of mine. In the process of setting all this up, I got so involved with them that I actually ended up investing and becoming an owner of the company because I believe in what they do. The whole idea that built this was I'm tired of, it's been almost 40 years. Like, I'm 37 years old. When I was 5, my mom got me a box turtle as a pet. I feel terrible now because that box turtle had a horrendous life because 6-year-old me didn't know how to properly take care of a turtle. But that's what reptiles were, where they were an oddity to buy your second child who's a little weird and has too much energy, just to shut him up, and it lives in a glass tank on the dresser in his room. That's what my box turtle was. That's what my frogs were. That's what most people's crested geckos are. Like, outside of the breeder side of the hobby, it's a goofy pet to buy your middle child, and it sits in a glass cage in their room. And then I would think about it and go, well, what about fish tanks? Like, when I was a kid, we had an elaborate fish tank, and it was the family's fish tank. It was the centerpiece of our living room, and we all got to take turns feeding it and naming the fish. Why is that not the way that we're pushing the reptile world? These animals deserve better. Let's make, that's why I love Zen Habitats, is they're the only company making cages that look good. They are made to be the centerpiece of your living room. Like, this is a beautiful cage. If you put this, like, this is actually going to my home where my daughter's gecko is going to live in it. This one, I have a duplicate to give away. And then this one is going to be the centerpiece of our living room with my daughter's gecko in it. And treat it more like the family living artwork pet centerpiece than the weird kids get in their room. So that was kind of the idea. Awesome. Just make a more fun way to shop for gecko diets. So the basic premise is every dollar you spend on the website is one entry to win. I do a new grand prize giveaway about every 6 weeks or so. So they're constantly running. There's constantly a new cage I build to give away. And it also gives you $250 credit to my gecko website. So if you don't have a gecko to put into it, you can go pick one up off the website. And, I want to make it fun for people. I want you, if you're buying the gecko food everywhere, so why not buy it where you might get something else, and it'll hopefully be a very small piece in a culture shift I'd love to see towards treating animals as more of a family pet, more of a centerpiece of your house, rather than that weird thing you stick in the corner in a dirty glass tank. I just think we can do better.
Yeah, and it's a cool concept because, like, everything is so expensive nowadays, just in general, like even groceries and stuff. You want to take advantages as many rewards that you can, and you're basically making it's fun because you're like, well, I have to buy gecko food anyways, or I have to buy these accessories or this bedding or anyways. And the fact that you now get a cool chance to get an entry to win something out of it makes it kind of even more fun, right?
Right. Like, if you can see a theme, I love gameplay. I want it to be a game. I have like fun t-shirts. This one's not on the website yet, but it will be soon. I got all kinds of fun t-shirts. Geckos are better than people, essentially. I also have coffee mugs that say the same thing. Like, you just have all kinds of fun, goofy stuff on there that, I really don't make much money on it. Most of the time, I'm lucky to break even with the giveaway. Hopefully, obviously, I would like that to get better and become a more sustaining business. But I love the gameplay. I love the fun. I love the interactiveness of it. Life's too short. Life sucks sometimes. Like,
it's funny. My husband just wrote that in the comments. Life's short. Have fun.
Exactly. Why can't we do stuff that's more fun?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So people can find you on it's AE Exotics, right? On Instagram is how it comes up.
Yeah, AE Geckos.
Yeah, AE Geckos.
Yeah, and Instagram, Facebook. I've got a TikTok account, YouTube, Altitude Exotics, everywhere.
Yeah, and for my Canadian friends that are listening and wanting to tune in to the Black Friday fun, Brian does export to Canada. So definitely there is that possibility. So don't think that you can't participate because you're in Canada. The Palm Street side of things, that's a question I was going to ask you. So I know we finally in Canada have access to see Palm Street. We can watch it. You can set up a payment and it works because I've tested it out.
Okay.
And there's an option either, I don't know if you'll have the both options because some people don't always have the two options, but you'll have pick up local or an address, but you have to put in an American address. So are Canadian people, will they be able to participate on Palm Street? Like, will you have an option for like pick up local and then you're going to do a winter hold, or what is that even a possibility, or how's that going to work?
I don't know. I haven't solved that particular problem yet. I would
Okay.
imagine, so it also gets complicated because I have free shipping on everything,
Okay.
but that's obviously not going to cover an export to Canada. So if you are in
No, of course
Canada,
not.
I would say you can do that and then just use the American address. You can even put in my address. It's on my website everywhere. You can
Okay.
find my address pretty easy. Just stick that in, and then the free shipping will cover the shipping from me to the export agent. Is usually in, I mean, where does Sam have us ship them? Usually Buffalo, New York, or
Yeah,
somewhere
I think
else.
it's in New York, and it would go to Reptile Express's location
Yeah.
there. And
So
then,
the shipping from me to them would be free. You wouldn't have to pay
yeah,
that. But then from there, the export, all that paperwork, and then getting it
yeah,
from Reptiles Express to your house, all of that's going to be
that's on the buyer.
on the
That's on
other
the
side of
buyer
the
to pay
border
for
that I
the
can't
import.
do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. No, but it's good for people to know that that's another market as well for you, for
Yeah.
buyers, right? If they know that at least that they can buy it and that you're willing to do a winter hold, then that gives more opportunities for people to go and spend their money.
And
And
winter
go buy
holds, I
some
never have a
geckos.
problem with. I'm lucky enough I can get most things shipped out. That's another thing. Even with U.S. buyers, some people are hesitant with my Black Friday sale because they don't want to wait till spring to buy it. I'm
Mhm.
much more comfortable shipping at much lower temperatures than a lot of other breeders are.
Okay.
A lot of breeders set their cutoff at 45 degrees for the overnight low. I set mine at 30, and
Mhm.
I'm very comfortable shipping down into the high 20s. That's why I set it at 30, because then if the forecast changes, I got a 5-degree buffer. I'll
Okay.
actually double box mine if there's something that's on that colder edge. A lot of times I'll double box them. I've done testing where if I have a double boxing technique that I can ship them down to, single digit temperatures and there's no issues. They stay warm enough, but you need a buffer zone. So I cut it off at about 30 degrees, low or high 20s. But with those numbers, most of the time I can get most of the Black Friday stuff shipped out the week after.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think for the winter holds it's mainly for international, right? For Canadian,
Yeah.
because there's the cutoff. I think the last import date is in a week or two. It would be
Yeah.
done after the Black Friday. They're not doing imports anymore. I mean, it starts up again in the spring, but
Yeah, we
it,
usually, I think they do one in like late March or April or something like that.
yeah,
Which, like I said, if winter holds need to happen, I'm happy to do it.
awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast today. It was an awesome
Of course.
chat, and I'm sure we could do this again and have another part 2 and chat about even more
I
stuff.
would love
There's
to.
so many things to talk about, right?
There is a
Um,
lot.
I'm going to put you backstage, and I will see you after the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. It was fun. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you, and looking forward for that Black Friday sale. I will be watching and
Awesome.
following
Thank you.
very closely. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for those who watched live and stuck around. It was an awesome conversation. I loved having Brian on, and he's a wealth of knowledge and so much information to learn. It's awesome. Again, for those of you who haven't voted yet, if you can go over to Fat Man Nation and go on to Vote Now and go and vote for me, it'd be very much appreciated. You'll see a lot of stuff coming up for me on social media for this. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be exciting to share all of this. And for those of you who catch the replay, again, thank you for watching, and I appreciate you, and I will see you next Sunday.
Shake your dreams from your hair. I'm already there, right beside you. So please